What's up, Cradle fans? I haven't gotten to say that in a while. It's so good to be back. So good to chat with you all again. This is going to be a more concise video. I'm not trying to ramble here in this one. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what this video is going to be about, or what this podcast is going to be about this week, and then we're going to jump right into it. So start off per usual, talking about what's been going on in my world, why I haven't made videos in a long time, why I'm making this video, my designs on the future. Then we're going to get into some upcoming events. It's about Dragon Con. Moving on, we're going to be talking about some very brief thoughts on Waybound and The Captain. I tried to shoot this video 10 minutes earlier, and I found myself like talking too much about both the Waybound and The Captain, so I had to stop myself. So we're going to talk about that briefly. Then we're going to be talking about what else I've been reading. Or we're going to look at the information requested bookshelf and see some new additions. And then we're going to talk about whatever else comes to mind before I end the show. All right, so we're first going to talk about what's been going on in my world and where I've been. So the last 6 months have been tough on me. I don't really talk about anything publicly usually, but the only people watching this are people who kind of know who I am. And so I feel more comfortable. But I got laid off from my job in February. And that was the first time I've been unemployed since I was in college more than 10 years ago. And so it wasn't something I was comfortable with or familiar with. And it came at a time when a lot of other people were getting laid off. And so it's just kind of scary in a sense. But I took that opportunity and just I had plenty of savings. I was financially responsible before that, during it, all that. So it wasn't like I was in a rough spot. And so I've spent the last 6 months kind of like exploring other avenues. I played a ton of poker, live poker. Found out that I am good enough to play that profitably, but currently don't have enough of a bankroll to earn at the scale that I would need to maintain a lifestyle that I'm currently comfortable with. I could reduce that lifestyle, but I don't really see the need to. But that's been a lot of fun because I love poker, and it was another humbling experience because poker, like life, is it's a game of incomplete information, and making the best decision or the right decision over and over and over again will eventually yield a profit, but you are never guaranteed that. Just like in life, you can make the right decision and life can just smack you down because of chance. And so that's been a fun lesson to have, pounded into my brain repeatedly over the last 6 months. But in addition to that, I've just been, I don't know, I got burnt out over a year ago, and I never had a chance to pause and to like rethink what I wanted to do with my time and like what mattered to me and why I was doing a lot of the things that I was doing. What habits of mine did I need to replace? I'm such a big fan of progression fantasy books, but I'm also a big fan of like progression in life and constantly improving yourself and putting in the work. So those are two very strong parallels for me. And so this was kind of like a chance to reset. And so I stopped doing a lot of the things that I had been doing previously. I did not stop reading, of course. I didn't even really stop writing, but I just I tried a bunch of new things, experimented with some new habits, and then all sorts of stuff. So that's where I've been. I'm finally at a point where I'm good, real good. I'm interviewing for jobs again. I'm making videos again. I'm writing a lot more. Very excited about that. Thank you all for, inquiring about the book that I'm writing. Super excited to share some of that with y'all. And In future information requested episodes, I'll be talking more about that book. I'll be talking more about the process, uh, all sorts of stuff. So I'm not going to get into it now, but still writing. Going to be focusing on that for the next few months, hoping to get that finished, edited, all the whole 9 yards. And then at that point, I'll make a decision if I want to publish it then or release it chapter by chapter, or who knows. I'll probably just publish it. But I want to have at least like most of the next book done before I really publish it, just because I'm so new to writing a lot consistently that I don't want to publish something and then have y'all wait a long time while I try to make one miracle happen twice. I don't want finishing a book to be a miracle anymore. I want it to be consistent. I want it to be what is expected. So that's a little update there. So let's move away from what's been going on in my world to my to upcoming events. Actually, switch to upcoming events. I'll be at Dragon Con. I'm always at Dragon Con every year. So I'll be at Dragon Con. The official parade starts in almost exactly 3 weeks. It will have already happened in 3 weeks. And we're 3 weeks and a day away from Will's event on Saturday. Excited to go to that. Excited to see the White family and the Hidden Gnome group every year. It's always such a pleasure. Another fun thing, Travis Baldry is returning to Dragon Con. He missed last year because he was on his book tour, I believe. Something related to his book. And he's here this year, but in an official capacity where he will be on panels. He'll have a booth. He'll be talking about Bookshops and Bone Dust, his new book, and his previous work. He'll probably be at Will's event too, just because he's such a core part of that. So he'll probably be at Will's event on Saturday, but he has his own thing. So I'm excited to go to both of those. There's a couple other authors that I've seen are having events that I'm going to go to. I don't know them as well. I haven't interviewed them like I've interviewed Will and Travis. So I'm not going to really announce that. I'm just going to show up. And if you see me there, come say hi. I don't know how many of you are going to Dragon Con. And then those of you that are going to Dragon Con are also going to be going to these events. But if you find yourself at an event that I'm at, come say hi. I'd love to chat. All right, what else for upcoming events? I think that's it. So let's move on to thoughts on Waybound and thoughts on The Captain. I'll start with thoughts on The Captain. I liked it a lot. It was exciting to see a book start from the point of view of someone who's already a powerhouse. It was exciting to see that powerhouse work with other powerhouses. It's interesting to see how many more powerhouses you have when you have a whole galaxy full of people. I liked the space component. I liked that it opens up a whole galaxy to giant space monsters and horde or flood style enemies. It was cool. It kind of reminded me of StarCraft a little bit. StarCraft with magic, which is what I think he was going for. But it also made me think a lot of what the book could mean for how it relates to the rest of the Willverse. Because, I mean, we don't know for sure because it's not really referenced in the book, but it's kind of hinted at. And it would have been a little bit I think it would have been a little bit lame if we'd gotten like any direct references like to the Abaddon or to the Way. Just because even though they're already like super powerful, it's too early for that. So I was happy not to see that, but I also was happy to see what was hinted at. And also interested in the story itself and on like the growth of the ship and what that could mean and etc etc. So excited to theory craft on that, but I still think theory crafting on that's a little premature. So I'm not going to talk too much about that now. We'll make a video on it, deep diving into my thoughts later. Probably still in August, but maybe after Dragon Con. I don't know. I might try to get it out before Dragon Con. So all of you fellow nerds who see me there, we can talk about the Captain. Also, Waybound. that's a video that will be coming out soon, like in the next week or two. I've had my thoughts organized on Waybound for a while, but I didn't have the excitement or the energy to make a video on it. But recently jumped back into Discord, saw many of you sharing your excitement around it, and it got me excited to share my thoughts, because I loved Waybound. I loved There's so much about that book that I loved. I felt like it was one. It was like two books. Two, when Will's writing makes me anxious because of how detailed these fight scenes are and how stressful these fight scenes are. That's really cool for me. I like that experience. Sometimes I like reading it where I know that the main character is gonna just destroy his opponent in a crazy way, and we're all gonna feel good about it. But it's also fun to see these massive battles against like the strongest beings on the planet, and they're like ganging up on him, and he just has all of these resources at his disposal. We get to see like the true monster that Ethan envisioned or didn't envision because of the divergence in fate that Lyndon took himself down. There's just a lot of cool stuff. Like it was You could tell in this book particularly that there was a lot of, not really a lot of editing, but a lot of like rewriting or additional scenes being added that like enriched scenes, because we didn't get like, one example that comes to mind. In previous books, if we had a fight between like Lyndon and two super powerful people who should have others backing them up, we wouldn't get a whole lot about the additional players. But when he's fighting Malice and Northstrider over Sacred Valley, and you've got Charity and Min Shui, the Winter Sage, attacking Sacred Valley from two different points, and Lyndon's there defending those points with illusions, and those illusions are able to keep back a sage backed up by many archlords or arc lords. It was super enriching because it just added to what Lyndon was doing. It just added to showcasing what he was capable of doing. It was just super rewarding. And there's scenes like that littered throughout the books. Sorry, throughout Waybound. Really cool. Really cool. The Abaddon stuff was like less fun for me, but I've always enjoyed like the setting of, or the world building of what the Abaddon represent and like the powers that they bring to their disposal, but the actual individuals were never really that interesting to me. Like Machiel, not that interesting to me, honestly. Suriel, more interesting because we get to know her a lot better. Osriel, obviously the most interesting because we spent so much time wondering about him while also getting to know him, that when the reveal was finally made, okay, cool. Now we're interested in him because we know him so well. But the storyline, I enjoyed it and I appreciated the part that it played, but it was never something I was personally invested in. But I still thought it was cool to see, and it was really fun to see the Abaddon interacting with our main characters for the first time, um, when they were getting to become little reapers. That was cool. And of course, the whole epilogue situation I loved. I love seeing Lyndon defending Sacred Valley after everything. I love seeing him basically bribing the 8-man empire to stay in line, while also equipping them with weaponry that will allow them to maintain a no monarch policy on Cradle. It was also fun knowing that Lyndon straight up was like, I can and will come back to check on you, so don't F this up or you will regret it. Because he knew he was going out to become a Reaper, or he at least, he knew. We're just going to go with that. He knew. So that was fun. So many fun things. So many storylines, plot lines closed. I just thought Will did a great job, and we were all really hoping that he would. None more than himself. we we can assume that pretty strongly, and he did it. He did it, and I'm sure it's a big relief. And now he can have fun uh, writing about space fantasy for a while. I do wonder though how long it will be until he starts up another series, because I don't. He's been working on more than one series for so long now that I'm curious if he's gonna just enjoy his time working on one series as a standalone like project, or if he's gonna use that time to write more short stories, or what it's gonna look like. So excited to see the future of Hidden Gnome Publishing and what that could mean with the finish of this capstone series of his. Makes me sad to know that the next video I make might be one of the last ones that is solely about Cradle. But yeah, a Waybound video is coming, and I've already talked on this like 8 minutes. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to what else have I been reading, because I know that that interests y'all sometimes just as much as Cradle content. And with that being said, we are going to stop staring at my face entirely, and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to look at the information requested bookshelf. All right, here we go. All right, the information requested bookshelf, where my face is. If you're watching this, I'm just moving my face around. You see the background? It's kind of cool, right? I'm trying to decide what I want. All of you are looking at me like, hurry up. All right, this is fine. All right, so we're gonna look at the bookshelf now. I wonder if I widen it, if it does. All right, I like that better. Don't like that. Whatever. All right, so we're gonna look at the bookshelf, and you probably don't look at this bookshelf enough to notice anything new, but I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom and show you the two new editions. First, which you can't see, so I'll move it over, is we have Mark of the Fool. Mark of the Fool by J.M. Clark. Whenever I finish a series and I'm looking for something new, I struggle. So I always just try things. Mark of the Fool didn't really excite me at first until I started reading it. I got a couple chapters in, was really interested in the magic system, and then realized, like, okay, this is actually progression fantasy. It's kind of cool, interested to see where this goes. The more I've read, the more I've enjoyed it. And so I can now strongly recommend it. There are 4 books published. The first 3 of them have audiobooks, I believe. And the 5th book is coming out in a couple months. It's not finished, but few things that we are reading these days are. So it's nice to know that there's several audiobooks out there that you can enjoy. I believe that our friend Travis Baldry is the audiobook narrator, but I forgot. So I'm going to go ahead and go look while we're live here. So let's see. Travis Baldry. Perfect. All right. So I wasn't wrong. So yeah, we've got our buddy Travis narrating those books, and we know how busy he is. So book 4 is probably in his queue to get done. The next on this list. Oh, and for those who haven't read Mark of the Fool, I'll give a brief synopsis of what's going on. Basically, in the country that the main character lives in, every 100 years, this enemy, this powerful magical enemy, like resurfaces and tries to invade. It invades by creating these dungeon cores that are, I don't really know if they're sentient, but they're like powerful magical constructs that follow their master's will, and they go out and they create dungeons which spawn different kinds of monsters for the purpose of terrorizing the human population, because this being cultivates fear. it literally cultivates and it strengthens itself on the fear of humans, I believe. Again, I'm not going to give too much away, and I don't really know that much, but that's the enemy. And every 100 years, when this enemy resurfaces, a divine being, that like divine being of this country, bestows 5 gifts, 5 marks to like 5 brand new 18-year-olds. Like it has to be their birth. There's all these criteria that has to exist for these people to get picked, but they get marked. And there are 5 marks. There's the mark of the champion, which basically gives you the strength, the speed, the agility, the skills, the tactics of all of the people who've had the mark of the champion before. So all these fantastic warriors, you basically get like a matrix download of all their skills, all their combined strength, all this cool stuff. So the champion is a super powerful melee fighter. Then you have the saint. The saint is kind of like your cleric type person. They get a huge endowment of like divine power from that divine being. You become like the avatar of that divine being's will, I guess. So you do like massive workings of divine power. Then you have the sage. This is your wizard, your magic user. There's a big distinction between divine magic and actual magic. And the sage gets bestowed a massive mana pool and a massive understanding and ability with magic. Typically, the sage is someone that's picked that's already pretty good at magic. Then you have the chosen. The chosen is someone who excels at all of the things, all of the other marks. So they become an extremely potent fighter, they become an extremely potent magic user, and they become an extremely potent divine magic user. They're supposed to be the leader. And the final mark is the mark of the fool, which I won't tell you too much about because you're going to learn all about it because the book's called Mark of the Fool. But the Mark of the Fool is considered to be the worst of the marks. It's considered to be somewhat useless in that it actively tries to stop the person marked by developing any of the skills that the other 4 heroes have. So anytime they try to do combat, this mark debilitates them. Anytime they try to do magic, it debilitates them. Anytime they try to use divine stuff, it debilitates them. And so our main character gets to go on his hero's journey. Literally. Because they're called heroes. The 5 heroes. Get it? So Mark of the Fool, I've really enjoyed it. And I recommend it to anyone else. The next is The Path of Ascension. The Path of Ascension by C. Mantis. This is a fun one because I don't know how to explain. I like this one. I enjoy reading this one a lot. And I'm not quite sure why. But I basically imagine, how do I explain this? Imagine if Lyndon, instead of being born on Cradle, was born in one of the galaxies that the Abaddon actively controlled. And there's Abaddon technology, and people are really strong, and there's also people that are mortals, and there are like creatures that break out and try to kill people, and there's a need for people to get strong. But basically, in this universe, there is ambient magic everywhere, and that ambient magic will slowly like convert planets into magical planets that become stronger. But this mana or this ambient essence or whatever creates these things called rifts, which are kind of like dungeons, but they're magical rifts that absorb ambient mana and get stronger. And when they get to a certain strength, they break. And all the creatures that are magically formed inside come outside and start rampaging. And so there's a need for people to get stronger and go into these rifts and keep, because like once you kill, if you kill all the monsters in the rift, you get a reward, and it like drains the magic or the ambient mana. It drains the mana in the rift, so the rift can't keep getting stronger. It also can't break because it's constantly being drained by the adventurers. But if an adventurer dies in a rift, all of their like essence fuels the rift, and then the rift gets stronger. So there's risk and reward there. But everyone who comes in contact with mana or essence uh, basically becomes magically capable. Everyone. And when you become magically capable, there's technology that can scan you and determine what your talent is. Every single person who becomes magically capable unlocks a tier 1 talent. And it affects the way you can do combat. An example of a tier 1 talent would be it turns all your skills into fire related skills, or you're extremely like all fire moves are 50% more effective and cost 50% less mana. So your talent is going to dramatically skew your progression towards being a pyromancer because your talent makes the use of fire magic so much easier. This universe has a mana problem in that there's never enough mana to go around, and it limits your ability to progress as as a combatant, because you have to let your mana refill. And by completing these rifts, you can get these mana stones, but rifts are tiered, and just like in other progression fantasy situations, the higher the tier, the more of a gap there is between tiers, and it's a whole thing. But I'm enjoying it because, again, our main character has a debilitating talent that he learns to like use in his favor. And I guess there's only 4 books released at this point, but this is one of those books that has like a ton of chapters on Royal Road, a ton of chapters on Patreon, and it's one of those where it makes you just need to keep reading. It also has a lot of good slice of life stuff. There's some time lapses, and the plot is, it's called the Path of Ascension because in this empire there's a program called the Path of Ascension where you are effectively trying to complete a challenge to get to tier 25 before you are 200 years old. And like almost no one ever finishes. And those that do finish are like so much stronger and overpowered than everyone else because of like a bunch of requirements to get to tier 25. And there's like, I don't know, there's like multiple galactic entities that have like 1 tier 50 each. And those 1 tier 50s kind of like act as a deterrent of the other ones. And because of how strong people are above tier 35, you don't get to take part in war if you are above tier 35. And so this Path of Ascension basically creates these super soldiers that can fight way above their tier. So each of these galactic entities that are like really strong each have their own versions of this Path of Ascension, and they're trying to like create super soldiers to get an advantage, but those super soldiers have to be lower than tier 35. And so like you have characters that have been in the military for like 10,000 years or something like that, and then they're retiring, and retiring means going from level 35 to 36 or tier 35 to tier 36. I don't know, it's cool. And like tier 50 is the max, and if you hit tier, I don't know, like around tier 45 to 50, you're getting pushed really hard to ascend to a higher realm. So there's potential for this series to go on, forever. I'm thinking like a Western desolate era type thing. And it's been fun. It's been fun to read it. I don't know. I strongly recommend it. I'm having a lot of fun. It's I'm not really one to critique writing or like to even judge writing. I just tell you what's fun. And like this book series always makes me feel like they're going to accomplish their thing and they're going to get some awesome rewards, and the main character is going to like get some awesome skill that's going to synchronize with his talents, and like it's like your quintessential power fantasy, and it's fun. It's enjoyable. And there's a little bit of romance, but it's like done in a tasteful way. Like I always appreciate cultivation books, like the newer ones and their takes on romance, when you can't really participate until you reach a certain tier, because otherwise it's a waste of time and a distraction and your momentum will be gone, blah blah blah. So it never becomes like a primary focus for any of our main characters, so it never like takes away from the enjoyment of the progression, which is why many of us read these books. So the Path of Ascension, strongly recommend. The link to all these books is always going to be in the description below. If you click on these links and go into Amazon and purchase a book, I'll get like a 10-cent kickback, which I appreciate. That's 10 cents that Amazon doesn't get to keep, and it supports the channel. So anytime y'all want to buy a book and you want to contribute, or you think of me, because I'm technically unemployed right now, and you just want to come click through these links, I'd really appreciate that. Even if you're buying something that isn't a book, if you were to click on this link, come here, and then go buy anything else, it still kicks a very very small portion back to me. It makes me feel good. It makes me want to make more videos and share more books with you all. So yeah, I would put Mark of the Fool and Path of Ascension higher up this list of what I'm enjoying, but it's such a fluid list of things that, whatever. I do really appreciate you all upvoting different books, so I'm gonna go ahead and give these two an upvote. I do think it's funny that The Thousand Lee still only has 4 upvotes and has 3 downvotes. Dungeon Crawler Carl, same thing. Fun fact, total change of topic, but a friend of mine liked the Dungeon Crawler Carl series so much, when he got a cat, he named her Princess Donut, which is one of the main characters of this book series. Princess Donut the cat. Thought that was funny. Thousand Lee just came out with a new book, book 9, which I am like a couple chapters in, so I don't have much to share there. I'm also on Mark of the Fool 4, which I'm enjoying quite a bit. But I've always liked Thousand Lee. Always happy to support it. A couple of the books are slower, but we're now at a point where his progression is enough that we're getting to do fun stuff all the time. There was even a time skip in book 8, which was great. Big fan. I haven't read any other books by Tao Wong other than The Thousand Lee, so not going to comment on anything other than there's a new book out and I'm reading it and I'm enjoying it. Also, let's see. I think there's a new Werky Chronicles book. Also, the Werky Chronicles are getting their covers redone, and the new covers are super cool. Yeah. Ooh, Wakespire just came out. Y'all, look how cool this cover is. Let me see if I can make it big. No, don't. Yeah. So cool. Big fan of the cover redesign. I'm going to get, what else am I reading off the screen? So this book series, I've actually made a video on before, and it's getting better and better. They're all the players are getting to a level of strength that makes everything fun. But interesting that's like the category that it's in. But either way, good 4.8. Yeah, no, Wakespire is a good one. It's like the Wakespire is like this tournament, and they're like on a team, and there's a bunch of other teams, and it's an interesting. It's like a tower climb. Wakespire is like a tower climb, tournament. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Big fan of the series. Big fan of Sarah Lynn. I think Sarah Lynn just doesn't get enough credit for whatever reason. Um, I sub to her Patreon and uh, will promote her work always. So check that out. That's a new one that came out. I did some digging on Jake's Magical Market in like the other day or two, and I mean, there's a couple of people who've downvoted this, but everyone that has read Jake's Magical Market that I know of liked it, at least to some extent. Uh, and book two should be coming out soonish. And then soonish after that, we should get a book three because this guy, J.R. Matthews, he has a Patreon. And if you go to his Patreon, you can't really read the post, but you can kind of see what he's been updating. And I don't sub to his Patreon because I don't not interested in any of his other books right now, and wasn't exactly a fan of him just like writing this book and then just like shelving the next one for so long without a whole lot of updates. And that could be just me not paying close enough attention, but I thought about it enough to go and look, and the second one will be coming out relatively soon. So keep that in mind. What else? I think another book came out in Art of the Adept, but I have not heard good things. Yeah, Wizard's Crown. I haven't read this yet. I don't know when I will read it. There's a lot of other books on my list. But if you're a fan of that, this book came out. Does it say when? When did this book come out? It's recent-ish. May of last year, so not recent at all. All right, I've just been out of touch with Art of the Adept. So if you're a big Art of the Adept fan, sorry about that. Let's look. Oh, Beginning After the End just came out with a new one, but I cooled off pretty hard on Beginning After the End after book 10 was put up on a site that I thought was weird. So I cooled off a lot on that, and I haven't read book 10 yet, but it's out. I believe this one actually did recently come out. It came out June 22nd, so a month and a half ago. Yeah, a month and a half ago. Several Defiance of the Fall books have come out. Primal Hunter books have come out. He Fights with Monsters books have come out. But I read those three pretty heavily via their Patreon. I am a huge fan of Defiance of the Fall. And He Who Fights with Monsters as well is picked back up. Recommend that one strongly. God, there's so much He Who Fights with Monsters chapters out there. Primal Hunter is at a pretty cool stage too, but it went into this like dungeon crawl with like infinite levels, and I'm just letting that build up chapters before I strip those chapters from Patreon and put them in my Speechify so I can listen to them as audiobooks. Just a reminder, Speechify is a really cool, sorry for the whiteout, but it's a really cool app that you I'm going to click on a book, and you basically will copy paste the text in here, and then it will start reading to you with AI, and it's pretty good. So it's pretty good, and their phone app is great. In their phone app, actually, you can I'm going to move back to this, but in their phone app, you can log into your Kindle, like read.kindle.com inside the app, and then it will audiobook read the books you have in your Kindle without you having to buy the audiobook. It works like 95% as well as I think it should. It's not all the way there yet, but Speechify is always updating themselves, their policies, their software. So their app has just dramatically improved over the years, and I've been using it for years. And an anecdote that no one cares to know, at one point, I think if you listen to 25 million words, you could get a call with the CEO. Well, I was closing in on that. I think I'm at like 9 or 10 million words listened to. And they completely changed that policy. Like it used to be for every like certain amount of words you listened to, you earned like a perk. And the final perk was getting to talk with the CEO. I don't know why most people would want to do that, but I kind of wanted to talk to him and be like, am I one of y'all's biggest users? And like what's the roadmap? I want to know. But I don't get to now, which is sad. Anyway, still a good app, still recommend it. Still recommend it. All right. That kind of wraps everything up. I'm curious to know what y'all are reading. If you've read something super awesome, let me know in the comments. And I just want to once again say thank you to everybody for sticking around, for patiently waiting for these videos to come out. They're going to be coming out a lot more often, just because after a lot of, not soul searching, but pausing, reflecting, thinking about like where I derive most of the value from, like how I spend my time. The fantasy fiction stuff it just takes the cake. It tops the list, whether that be making videos for y'all on stuff that I'm reading to try to add an enriching experience to content outside of those books, and then writing myself. It's just it's the better parts of my days. So you should see a lot more videos coming from me. And I just enjoy making those videos for y'all. That's kind of about it. And I appreciate the support and the interaction and the community. So once again, thank you. And this short and concise 40+ minute video is going to be ending now. So thanks again for watching.